Today in this video, I will show you how you can use your iPhone 11 like a pro by changing just three things. Now there's no denying the fact that more and more people are taking photos just with their iPhone. They are simply not comfortable carrying a heavy, bulky and let's face it, expensive camera around. So the iPhone 11 for example serves as a main camera. But not everybody is using the best camera settings. Today we will change this. These are the things that professional photographers change once they get their hands on an iPhone 11. So let's get on with it. Now let's start with settings first. And I have my iPhone 11 here, so we will go through each setting together step by step. Firstly, we will open camera settings. Now I usually type because it's a long way down to scroll. In camera settings, we'll go through formats first and choose most compatible. This makes sure that we have the highest quality available. Now after formats, we'll go through preserve settings. Now this option makes sure that you have the last used photo and video recording settings available. This means that every time you take a photo, for example, and close the camera app, when you open it again, instead of the default options, you will see the last used settings for your camera. This is particularly helpful if you have found your perfect settings and you don't want to change or lose them. Now, preserve settings gives you a lots of options to turn on and off. For example, camera mode, creative controls like filters, light adjustment. For example, then you can also choose to save your depth control, which is basically the depth of field. You can also choose to save your exposure management, night mode, live photo, portrait zoom, for example. Now, after preserve settings, the next option to turn on is grid. This makes sure that you have a 3 by 3 line or grid on your camera and you can use this to compose your photo properly. I have this option turned on all the time. Now after grid, the next option to turn on is level. Now after level, we will turn on the view outside the frame option. Now this is very interesting. You see your iPhone 11 basically has two lenses, a wide angle lens and an ultra wide angle lens. So let's say you are shooting with the wide angle lens and you have this option turned on. Then your iPhone 11 camera will also show you how your frame looks with the ultra wide angle lens, right? This is useful because firstly, it allows you to compose your photo better because you see what's going on in your frame more. The second is if you're cropping it in editing, you will get much more surface area to crop. Now the next option is prioritize faster shooting and I usually turn it off. This is because if you turn this option on, yes, the iPhone will allow you to take more photos at the same time if you press the shutter button rapidly, but this will also result in loss of quality of those photos because more photos mean more memory and the iPhone 11 has to manage the memory in your phone. So to compensate for more photos, it will basically reduce the quality of your photos. And then the last option in the settings is Smart HDR. And again, I usually turn it off. And this is because there are two problems. Firstly, if you turn this option on, the resulting photos will be very heavy. They will take a lot of space in your phone. And secondly, I personally don't like the look of HDR photos because it looks kind of fake, kind of photoshopped, and there's just too much detail, more than you need, really. Right, so now that we have changed all the settings that we needed to, let's move on to the camera itself, where I will show you some advanced features that you can only see in professional cameras. Now, we know that we cannot change aperture, ISO and shutter speed in the default camera app in iPhone 11. But you can change the exposure. And this makes a lot of difference. Now, there are two ways you can do this. Firstly, in your iPhone 11 camera, all you need to do is tap and hold on to a subject. This will make sure that the focus is locked on that subject. Now you can move the sun icon on the right hand side up and down to basically reduce or increase exposure related to that subject. If you move the sun icon up, this means that you are exposing for the highlights. And if you are moving the sun icon down, this means you are exposing for shadows. Another way to do this is to simply click on the arrow on the top to open advanced options and then click on the plus minus icon. This is your exposure meter. Now by default it's set to 0, but you can increase or decrease your exposure. Right, so now that the exposure is set, let's talk about composition. You may remember that in settings we had turned on the level and grid options. So if you have these options turned on in the settings, you should see a 3 by 3 grid in your iPhone 11 camera. Right, so try centering the subject within that grid or try placing the subject at any points that those lines meet. Now you can also try moving your phone like this and you can see how the level line basically shows you how aligned or misaligned your frame is. So now that we can compose our photo properly and effectively, the next option to talk about is aspect ratio. So as in mirrorless or DSLR cameras, you can also change the aspect ratio of your photos in an iPhone 11. All you need to do is click on the arrow on the top and open the advanced options. In advanced options, you need to go to the second option. Now by default, the iPhone 11 chooses a 16 by 9 ratio, but you can basically select 4 by 3 or you can also select 1 by 1 or square. Now this option is helpful if you consistently share your photos on a social media platform like Instagram. So for example, Instagram stories always allow a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. So you can basically set that aspect ratio in your iPhone, and whenever you take a photo, you don't have to crop it. You can directly share it on your Instagram stories, right? The next feature is burst mode. Now, like professional cameras, your iPhone 11 can also take multiple photos at the same time. All you need to do is on your iPhone 11 camera app, simply press and hold the shutter button to the left hand side. And you will see that the numbers keep on increasing as you hold it. Once you stop holding the shutter button, the burst mode turns off. And the best part is you can actually choose one or multiple photos from this collection of burst photos. Now the next feature that I'm going to show you will probably blow your mind. Do you know that you can also do long exposure on your iPhone 11? Yes, you can. All you need to do is simply turn on the live photo feature. The iPhone will actually capture some time before you take a photo and after you take a photo, and it will stitch everything together to create a small video. Now the trick is to basically open this live photo and from the left hand side menu choose the long exposure option. This will basically convert the live photo into a long exposure shot. This feature is actually quite cool, and personally I got addicted to it once I discovered it, and I started taking photos of any moving object and I would change every photo into a long exposure photo. The only drawback to this feature is that because it's really not a photo but just a small video, it takes much more space or memory in your phone. Now this is all well and good, but all professional cameras can actually also shoot in low light conditions really nicely, depending on what lens they have. So, is the iPhone 11 actually any good in low light? And the answer is yes, it is. It is actually very, very good in low light because it has something called night mode. It basically turns on by itself whenever the iPhone senses a low light condition, and depending on how much light you are taking in, the night mode can either instantly take a photo or it can take some time before it can take the photo. So for example, let's say you are shooting at sunset. Then the night mode will actually take very, very less time before taking a photo because you are still getting some amount of light, although it's still a low light condition. And then if you are shooting in a very dark room, for example, then the night mode will take actually a lot of time before capturing the actual frame. Now at this point, we are using the same camera settings and advanced features like professional photographers would do on their iPhone 11, right? But do you know that your iPhone 11 also lets you edit your photos like you would do on a professional editing software? So now we are on edit and you can see a lot of options to choose from. So let's start with cropping first, and you can see already that you can crop to any aspect ratio, and you can also change the perspective in a vertical or horizontal direction. Next up are filters. The filters are basically like presets in your professional editing software, and you can choose any filter that you like. But the thing that I want to show you is adjust. So in adjust, you can basically see all the settings that you can change in your photo that you would get in any professional editing software. You can change the exposure, highlights, shadows, and you can also change noise reduction in your photo. So for example, if you have shot in a very low light condition and your photo has a lot of noise, you can basically reduce the noise in your photo. Right, so now you can use your iPhone 11 like a pro. You have the same camera settings, you know all the advanced features like a professional photographer would use, right? And not only this, you can also now edit your photos like a professional photographer would do. Now, if you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving this video a thumbs up. My main motto is to make photography as easy as possible to understand, especially if you are a beginner. So any kind of feedback is really welcome. Also, let me know in the comments below, how do you prefer to take your photos? Do you like taking your photos with your iPhone or do you like using a camera to take photos? I really want to know. Right, so this was a lot of fun shooting this video. I'll see you in the next one. Keep shooting, keep taking photos. I hope you really enjoy yourself. Till next time. Bye.